What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily podcast powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. We got breaking news. Coach Larranaga stepping down as the head coach of Canes Hoops. We are going to give you all the instant reaction to that move, everything we know, everything we think might be happening going forward, and just fallout from the departure of what we all consider to be the greatest coach in the history of Miami Hurricanes basketball. Also going to talk about Pop-Tart Bowl, portal, all the other stuff that we typically have in the comments on these live shows. So like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Some folks that aren't going anywhere, that is Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Pete, hop in.
D, man, they're killing us in the comments. If they only knew.
Yeah, people were wondering. We were supposed to go live earlier, held that off because we knew this news might be coming, and we wanted to make sure we were ready for an instant reaction. Actually ended up coming a little earlier than we expected. So we
left the studio.
Came back. Anyways, enough of that. So, Pete, you're wearing the Final Four hat. You are a season ticket holder. Your whole life as a season ticket holder has basically been during the Coach L era. I saw the video in the chat this morning.
I was there the Perry Clark years at the Convocation Center. Rob Height, Guillermo Diaz era. I was there for the Frank Haith era. So, I mean, it's a sad day for me. Obviously, the last two seasons have been really rough to follow because I was at the Mount St. Mary's game the other day while the playoff games, the college football games were going on. I stayed through the overtime. So I stick with this team through the good and the bad. And I think people need to kind of reset and realize what a terrible spot this program was in when Coach L took over, right? You're in the ACC, which ACC is still a great conference we see every year once March comes, but it was the ACC was thought of even higher, right? Miami was at the bottom of the barrel there. Frank Haith brought some good guys in here or there, but never built a roster. They made it to the round of 32 once. Jack McClinton, thanks to him and his big performance against St. Mary's in the first round and Patty Mills. But Miami was not in a good spot whatsoever. The NCAA was also looming. Right, the Daquan Jones thing, people forget that situation, right? Which was a Frank Haith thing. So that was before the other stuff, right? So to me, and the other stuff meaning what happened with Coach O here, but he really comes over from George Mason, and everyone was like, "Man, is this guy coming down here to retire?" Obviously not. He gave us 14 incredible years here. Again, the last couple, and then there was a couple other seasons in between, but almost immediately wins the ACC, right? Goes from one of the worst at the bottom of the barrel. And by the way, is an OG in the transfer game.
Yeah.
People forget this was before the transfer portal when guys had to sit out. It was honestly the best thing because he could get them acclimated to the system for a year. And really they were a part of the team before they could actually play. He was an OG in that. He did a lot of things that really helped Miami get to where they are at now, which looking forward here a little bit, we're going to keep reflecting on his career at Miami, but very, very interested to see now what this job could attract on the open market. And we were talking about this earlier when we thought it could be coming just before the news hit. And now John Rothstein, one of the top college basketball reporters in the country, tweets, "The Miami job will be extremely coveted this spring when vacancies are being filled, an incredible place to live, an attractive destination in the transfer portal /NIL era, and an incredible upward mobility in the current state of the ACC." And again, Larranaga's shown you can win here, right? I think before Coach L, this is before the portal era and all that, like you kind of were like, is there a path to win in Miami in the ACC? I don't know that there is. Now that you've seen it done before, the blueprint is there. There could be some intriguing names. We're going to hear a lot of local ties, a lot of people who have been here before. Coach Caputo at GW, I think, is someone whose name is going to come up a lot, and we're big fans of his here at Canes Insight. He's interacted with a lot of our stuff in the past, and he's doing a really good job over there at GW. But very interested to see what sort of names emerge here over the next interesting timetable here because now you don't get these college basketball searches mid-season like this normally.
Yeah, so a lot to unpack here. First, you mentioned the Coach L being first in the portal era. It was really before the portal era because, like you said, they had to sit out a year. So the 2013 team, which again to me is still the best team in Canes basketball history. I know they didn't make the Final Four, but that Shane Larkin team was really built on transfers in the old school model, which was awesome to see. Just him being kind of ahead of the curve in that respect. Best coach in Miami history, hands down. We had 3 Cuban coaches at the same time, which is unusual. Him being the most successful in all major sports. I don't think we need to repeat that. We're good. Although maybe Frank Martin comes in. But 14 seasons at Miami, 6 tournament appearances, 4 Sweet 16s, 2 Elite 8s, 1 Final Four, 744 wins total at Bowling Green State. Then goes to George Mason, of course, that Final Four run, which I don't think people realize how revolutionary that was at the time. Like, it got more common after for Cinderellas to get that deep. I think parity improved that you would see Cinderellas get deeper and deeper. But at that time, when George Mason went to the Final Four, it was a complete shocker. I mean, I cannot stress enough how shocking it was for that run to happen. It was really, really unique at the time. And then, of course, Miami going where they were. And you look at where the program is. You showed the Rothstein tweet. I'm older than you, so I go back to Miami Arena, Marcus Barnes, Darius Rice. Very non-college basketball setting at that Miami Arena, very hard to get to, and just it was not a vibe. So now you fast forward, you're still in a premier basketball conference, possibly. I know it's been up and down lately, but to me, the premier basketball conference, pound for pound, total. Big East again, right now might be the top dog, but overall, historically,
SEC is pretty strong these days too.
I still, when the ACC gets counted out, you look in the tournament and they're winning games. Yeah. So I say A is still the premier conference, and you are in an arena which did not exist, when we're in this era we're talking about. He wasn't there for the beginning of it, but he really made that the home of Hurricanes basketball, made it a place that people wanted to go to. So he's handing off a program that is so much better than where it was, certainly the years before he got there and even right before he got there. So his legacy is beyond reproach. He was a Hall of Fame candidate. I think he will be a Hall of Famer for sure when he goes in. And just look at 2 ACC titles, an ACC tournament victory. I don't know what else to say. But the big picture, when you look at why he might have left, obviously we'll talk about this season. But Pete, I think the NIL and losing a guy like Norchad that was the face of your program to like another team.
Yeah.
Things like that, I think, started to wear on him. You look at the ACC, no more Roy Williams, no more Coach K, Mike Bray, Jim Boeheim, Tony Bennett, all gone. That's just from the ACC. And I know with Tony Bennett, he said NIL is a big part of it. The older guys, you got to assume, of course, age was a part of it, but NIL, I'm sure, is a part of it. And the fact that this team was such a modern team and that you're paying guys, you're bringing guys, it's a brand new team. It's not guys you're developing, which I'm sure he loved. You still had some of that with Isaiah Wong and guys like that on the older teams, even though they did have a lot of transfers. So, I don't know. I think all that just wore on. He'll speak for himself and we'll find out more, but I think the NIL era kind of wore on him a little bit.
Yeah. And it's interesting because like if on paper, he was acquiring talent. That's the interesting part about it, D, is that they just had their best recruiting class in school history this past year, right? With the Thea, Divine Ugochukwu has turned out to be an awesome find for them. Austin Swartz was a big recruit. And then even in the portal, like, again, the way the roster, this is obviously a whole different discussion. The way the roster has been constructed, the pieces don't fit together, obviously, for this team this season. But, like, those guys, a lot of them were highly sought after portal players as well. Brandon Johnson, ECU, was a highly sought after portal prospect. Jalen Blackman, as a top 15 scorer in the country, was wanted by other programs. Nigel Pack a couple years ago with that whole thing. I mean, like, obviously that was a very public NIL sort of thing,
and that worked out.
That worked out. But that's what I'm saying. That like that's why. Yes, I agree with you. I don't think he wants to he wanted to deal with it off season after off season, right? I don't think the timing of it right now screams, hey, I can't deal with NIL stuff, because I think it's obviously more of the way the season's going. If they were trending in the right direction on the court right now, this decision wouldn't have been, he wouldn't have been saying, well, the NIL stuff's annoying. It's time to step down. That's why to me, and he said before the season and every year he said, look, my energy is good and all that. I don't think I think he has the energy to coach. Like, I really think he does. I just think just seeing his body language and, not to read too much into things, but the last couple of years, I think he's been frustrated with some of the guys that he's been dealing with. It's not the player's fault either necessarily. It's just like that eye to eye nature hasn't really been there. Just watch again, going to the games, like you see body language, guys coming off the court, how they interact with the coach, like seeing his frustrations at times with certain stuff on the court. That I think played into it more, this decision where he's looking at the schedule now saying, man, got a whole ACC schedule ahead now. Do I want to do this, or do I want to, because look, his relationship with the school and all that, I think if he wanted to finish the season out, the people in the administration would, that I don't think this was pushed by the admin, right? So I think that relationship's going to be great moving forward. Build him a statue, name the court after him, all of that stuff, right? I think we can pretty much both agree that he deserves that. But he's pretty much doing the school a bit of a service here by giving them the time to really get ahead of this search now.
Yeah. Now the negative is our players are going to be tampered with, incredibly, particularly young guys. I think that, a lot of these guys are out their way. I see a lot of comments in the chat about like, well, NIL, listen, we were spending money. It's not that he didn't have the resources necessary for NIL. Obviously it worked out the first time with Pack and Omier, but I go back to this offseason, right? You don't know if Pack's coming back. Omier kind of has you in the wind, not knowing what's going on with Omier. You're negotiating with a guy that's the face of your program that you have elevated. He's elevated you at the same time, not someone that you think is going on the market to the highest bidder. And then it seemed like they were just bringing in talent. They were just bringing in players. Like, this player's available. He wants to come. We can afford him. Let's bring him in.
Without a real plan of how to put it together.
There was no plan. I mean, just go up and down the roster. So Nigel Pack decides to come back. He is a score first player, clearly not a point guard, a very good player, but a point guard, no. And he's there to score first. Jaleel Athea, who you spent a lot of effort to bring in as a high school recruit, score first player. Austin Swartz, another recruit, score first player. Lynn Kidd as a center. He is a score first center. He's not a rebounder. He's not a shot blocker. He is there to score. And a lot of times he needs the ball. It's not just finishing. In fact, he's probably better at scoring with the ball in his hands than at finishing. Brandon Johnson, score first player. Jalen Blackman was a top 20 scorer in the nation at Stetson. So he comes in as a score first player. Cleveland decides to come back. He wants to score. Basically, everybody that you brought in was a score first player. So in terms of putting this team together, the talent is there. The talent was there last year, but you don't have role players. Wooga last year, after being more of a role player on your Final Four team, now wants to be a scorer. That didn't work out last year. Bensley Joseph, after being really a defensive spark plug, he decides, I want to be more of a scorer. Doesn't work out last year. So the fact that you can't just sit back and say, I'm going to construct a team and develop guys into the roles that they fit best, I think that wore on him, because it was so frantic in the offseason. And then you get the team together and he's like, okay, now it's time for me to coach these guys. I just got them. I haven't developed them. They're new to me because it's not guys I recruited out of high school. And then, I got to develop them in a system. It just doesn't work. 2013, yeah, there were a lot of portal guys, but they were developed for a year in the system. The Final Four team and the Elite Eight team, yes, there were portal guys, but they were brought in to fill specific roles. Moore came in. You are the point guard. We need a point guard. Pack and Omier came in with specific roles. You had Wong already there. Miller really was developed here, although he was a portal guy. So, I just think it became overwhelming to start with a new team that was put together haphazardly, expect them to come together, and then the results weren't there.
Yeah, I agree. I think, man, you come off that Final Four run, Elite Eight, Final Four, back-to-back seasons, and you got to capitalize on that. You really have to capitalize on that. For whatever reason, they weren't able to. I guess technically you get that. You were able to in the recruiting sense that you bring in your highest rated class of all time. There's no doubt that Final Four, but you have to capitalize in terms of I understand you may not make it to the Elite Eight or Final Four every year, but you can't have that drop off that we've seen in the last 2 years. You've got to make the tournament last year. You got to be in the mix. And then again, this run has just been really tough to watch. as someone who watches every game. And like, the thing about Coach L in the past is even a lot of those bad teams were at least in ball games. Some of these games, you go into them and you're watching early on, and you say, man, we just have no chance to win this game. Like, they aren't fighting and battling the same way that they were, even if they didn't have the talent or the pieces to compete at the highest level. Like, these teams at their worst were still going into Duke and North Carolina and competing with them and giving them tougher games than a lot of teams in the ACC. And we all know that stat that was out a couple years ago. It's not looking the same now as, the last couple of years, but where he was 500 at one point against Duke and Carolina in his career. It was like the best record of any coach at the time in the ACC. So like, that sort of stuff, it sucks that these last 2 years kind of make people forget about that a little bit, but it's been 14 years strong, and you have 2 different runs with 2 completely different teams and rosters, by the way, those ACC championship runs, right? It's not like you did it with the same group of players. So they retooled after that initial run with Shane Larkin and all those vets, Kenny Kaji, Duran Scott, Trey McKinney-Jones. And then you have a couple down years. Then you get back to the Sweet 16. You really did it with 3 teams. You had that other team there with Angel Rodriguez, Sheldon McClellan, and those guys that got to the Sweet 16 and lost to the eventual champion Villanova. And then you have that other team, of course, which had the recent run. And again, retooled again, because you lose your starting point guard in Charlie Moore and Wardenberg, who was an amazing player. So it was just really the last 2 years, man, just really disappointing. But we, like I said, you can never take this right here away from us, that Final Four run. So, yeah, man, we'll see.
And by the way, you wasted a couple of years with some FBI nonsense, as well. Just a complete witch hunt, stupid investigation, waste of everybody's money and time. That hurt Miami's program quite a bit as well. So we got to talk about that. By the way, appreciate you, Birdstone. Smash that like button. Shout out to the villains, Streeter, everybody X, everybody at Footballville, Caneville. So again, yeah, please like and subscribe to the show. We're on all day talking, portal, recruiting, Pop-Tart Bowl, and then in this case, basketball. And we have the daily the post-game basketball show that Pete's been doing. So, P.S. I just sent you something in the private chat. I think you should have gotten it, because a lot of people chiming in on this job. Rothstein talking about there's going to be a highly coveted job. Now you have Goodman, another, pillar of the college basketball reporting scene.
I would expect, D, just knowing what I know, that there will be a strong support from a group of people at Miami for Coach Caputo.
Yeah, go ahead and read the tweet. So
this is the tweet from Jeff Goodman. One name that should be in the mix to replace Jim Larranaga is George Washington head coach Chris Caputo, as long as AD Dan Radakovich isn't able to lure a big name to Miami. Caputo, 44, was an assistant at both George Mason and Miami. GW is 11-2 this season. Before he took over, they had 5 consecutive losing seasons. And yeah, D, this is a guy, like I said, is going to be a popular name in the mix. We're both big fans of his. Recruiting wise, I hear nothing. I was texting a buddy of mine who's a ref down here locally. He said, I saw Caputo when he was a head coach more in the gyms down here than I saw Coach L as head coach. And again, that's not a slight on Coach L, because he was recruiting his what off the last couple of years. They brought talent in from these recruiting classes, but that just goes to show you that Caputo is a grinder, has the relationships down here. Now, they haven't won big yet at GW, so you want to see them have a really good season here. But I agree with what Goodman is saying in terms of, like, look, if there's a name, like I saw someone mention Jay Wright, right? And his name, obviously he's in TV now, former Villanova coach, and there's been some speculation he could jump back into it. I know he said publicly he doesn't want to coach again. But like Miami, as what we're seeing here, the way that it was for Coach L, if you set it up a certain way, you can have a lot of success and not have to be that same on-the-go coach that you necessarily were. Now, in the NIL era, will that work? That whole different discussion. But if a big name comes available, then who knows? But I do think Coach Caputo would definitely work here.
Yeah, so with Caputo, I think it's going to have to be on the upswing, meaning that his team needs to have a good season. George Washington needs to have a good season. So before he got there, 5 straight losing seasons for George Washington. First year, 16-16. So ends that losing skid, but 500. Last year, 15-17, takes a slight step back. This year, 11-2, but now you get into conference play, and we're going to see what they're really about. If they finish with a very strong season, make the tournament, now you could see the outside resume for Caputo start to take shape. And then, of course, all the other things which would make him a strong hire. The fact that he's so aggressive, he's so purposeful about making relationships in the community, raising money, all of the passion he has for the university. He fits perfectly in many ways, things we need. We need a young coach who's going to bring energy to this program. But you got to hire him on a upswing. If he's having another mediocre year at George Washington, even though he did come in there when they were losing, it's hard to get people excited regardless of what he does on a personal basis. So that's something to watch with Caputo, just how they finish. Some other names that are constantly mentioned around this job. So I wanted to bring it up. First name is all over our chat for obvious reasons. This team looked pretty good when we saw him. Ben McCullum at Drake, 4-time Division II national champion at Northwest Missouri State. Drake is 11-0. He's probably the hottest name in college basketball coaching right now. The concern is, of course, look, even as desirable of a job this is, there'll be competition for a guy like this. And if you look at his coaching history, his playing history, his life history, basically he's in that triangle right there at, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, kind of right there in the plains. He's been in one of those states his whole life. So much different, of course, than where Miami is and how Miami operates and just the city and the location. So to pull him from that region to Miami when he's doing a good job at Drake and having success already, we'll see. You don't know. I don't know, Ben McCullum, other than the success he's had and what his team looked like when we saw him. But that would be a name to keep an eye on because he's going to be in the name mix for every opening in college basketball. Anthony Grant, Miami native, 58 years old, probably on the older side of what you're looking for a head coach, but has Miami ties. Played at Dayton, led them to an Elite 8. He was at VCU. He was a coach of the year in the Coastal Athletic Association there.
And he was a Billy Donovan assistant.
Alabama, Oklahoma City, yep. And then he's been at Dayton since 2017. Was the coach of the year in 2020. They were number 3 in the nation when COVID wiped out the season. So hard luck situation for him at Dayton. Number 3 in the nation. And then we'll see what happens with Dayton this year. They went to the second round last year, probably their best season since he's been there that was all the way to fruition. Right?
I have a name, D, that hasn't been mentioned that I don't think people would be very excited about, but I mean, I'm not going to completely count it out. Jay Larranaga.
Yeah.
Assistant. And for those of you who are unaware, of course, it's Coach Larranaga's son, who everyone would, I'm sure, would be up in arms. I say, I don't want to hire from within like that. Let's just not hire a son. But this is a guy who is an assistant coach for the Clippers and has been in the mix, was one of the top assistants for the Celtics, and has been in the mix heavily for head coaching jobs in the NBA. So,
yeah, to me, college basketball would be more my style here. You saw Larranaga. There's a college basketball lifer. That'd be more where I would go than the NBA level, just because it's just such a different game. There's so many different things you got to worry about. But with the money, maybe it's becoming more like NBA.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Maybe the way that we are looking at football side, which we will talk football, everyone in here at a certain point, but how it's becoming more like an NFL type organization, the way that things are run inside and the way the money is, right? Maybe there is a bit of and he's 49 years old. So it's not like he's in, I would think, the prime of his, what could be the prime of his coaching career. Now, again, he's been in the mix for NBA jobs. So, like, does he wait it out and get a head coaching gig there? Who knows? But I would have to think that, like, we'll see what L's involvement is going to be in this process. He may just completely step away and not, because he has ties to too many people in the coaching world that he just doesn't want to be involved in it, or Miami won't even, the powers that be just handle everything themselves. But I would imagine that if he had a strong suggestion for his son, they would at least give him an interview.
Yeah, I think that's something to monitor, certainly.
Chris Quinn, your boy, he's getting some shouts in the comments here.
Yeah, I've done a great job in Miami Heat. I think he's probably more in line for a head coaching job, just in the NBA soon. So obviously Coach Spo probably the best coach in the NBA, voted on every year by the GM. So his second in command, that's a pretty good place to be in terms of future jobs. Just a couple, another name we got to talk about, so Frank Martin is going to get attention, obviously, Miami native. I mentioned that Larranaga, we had the three Cuban coaches all at once here with Arteaga, Cristobal, and Larranaga, who people don't realize is a Cuban as well. And I said that's probably going to end now. I guess Frank Martin could potentially extend it. He's at UMass. They're not really having a great record this year. I'm not sure that the window for Frank Martin is open right now, maybe in the past. Right now, I don't know if that's the direction you go.
I like Gmail CGS's idea here.
Yeah.
He says go hire the UConn.
Why not? He's in a slump, isn't he? He lost a couple games, so you get him on buy low. Another name we should talk about, just because he's going to be the head coach at the University of Miami, is Bill Courtney, the interim head coach, former head coach at Cornell.
Did they announce that?
That's announced, okay. Yeah. So he didn't really do well at Cornell. 6 years, 60 wins, 113 losses. Been in Miami since 2019. Pete, he's been very much involved in the recruitment of a lot of these players. Obviously his evaluation starts now. We'll see what this team does. They're in a tough spot, an incredible losing skid heading into ACC play. So, curious to see how this season goes, and we'll talk about that in a second. And that'll, I'm sure, be his resume. But maybe a guy that could stay as an assistant is somebody who,
transition the transition guy. Yeah.
Especially Caputo or Larranaga or someone.
So I've heard great things about him in terms of his dealings with the players, recruiting wise, relationships, all of that. I kind of notice him as the guy who, when players come back to the bench, and like I said, I don't think it's been the warmest interaction between Larranaga and players at times over the last couple of years. But when players come back to the bench and they're frustrated, and whatever the case may be, it seems like Coach Courtney is the one who kind of reels them in. He knows how to look them in the eye and tell them, look, this is why, you were pulled. This is the situation. Like, so maybe that kind of brings the group together. Sometimes you see these, the new coach bump where the team performs really strong in the next couple of games when the new coach comes in. And look, I think he's a guy like remember when Larry Scott was hired as interim coach for Miami football, and he got the train right, man. The guys liked to play for him. They believed in him, and they need some energy kind of infused into the season. You have the whole ACC in front of you. So they're not going to the tournament. They need to go on some ridiculous run. It would be the most miraculous thing I've seen as a Canes fan. But you can at least kind of right the ship a little bit and try to retain the roster, like you said. Get a Jaleel Bethia, really, really get him some confidence, and where he has to say, look, this season, winning and losing, it matters, but I got to get myself right. And I'm looking for certain things like that as the second half of the season comes here.
Yeah, and to me, this is going to be it was going to be an interesting season to watch anyways, chemistry wise. Now it's even more so, just to see how things go. You hope it's not a total combustion with bad vibes. Obviously, it's not going to be a great feeling at the SCO. I think the tension is going to be, you have a Jalen Blackman from the portal, one and done. You have a Brandon Johnson, Lynn Kidd, Nigel Pack. All four of those guys are one and done seniors. Matt Cleveland, also a senior. Jaleel Bethea is either one and done here to the NBA, or based on the way the season has gone, most likely, I think, one and done here somewhere else. I don't want to totally give it away, and maybe that changes here coming up. But that's someone that, it's tough to envision coming back to Miami this year. As it sits here today, I hope I'm wrong, because he's so talented and has had more success in the last couple games. So all those guys want to play right now. But for the long-term interest of the program, the guys that really should be getting a lot of reps, in my view, Divine, a point guard who's been starting lately and I think has made a positive impact. He could do even more as his role expands. The point guard from Houston, true freshman, 3-star recruit that looks like maybe the best of the freshman class. Austin Swartz, who's had his ups and downs, been in the starting lineup, someone I like, big body, textbook shot, good attitude, needs some development. And then Isaiah Johnson-Arrigo, who's had moments here and there playing. Those are the three guys I'm interested in seeing, and those are the three guys I'm worried about losing, right? You're going to lose the other guys. I'm worried about these guys getting tampered with the whole season, and then they're taken and you don't have anybody left. So do we see more of the young players? Do we just kind of close ranks and just say, listen, let's just go with the veterans that give us the best chance to win now? Given the uncertain future and the incentives kind of being warped as far as winning now versus preserving the future, I don't know how this is going to go. I hope the young players continue to expand their role, but I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Bigger picture, the interesting thing to look at here, as Dan Radakovich is going to be making, this will be his third hire for I don't want to miss anything. It's more than 3 because they hired a women's soccer coach as well a couple years ago, who came over from Clemson. So I don't want to say what number hire it is because I'll mess that up. But he hired Coach Cullup for women's basketball this offseason, and the early returns on her have been awesome. They're 11-1. They've already won a game in the ACC. So does that maybe make you feel better about moving forward? That decision, that's something interesting to look at. And just in general, like, this is a big hire for AD Dan Radakovich, because the football thing was set up with Mario before he was even here, right? That they came over together. So that'll be the hiring process will be interesting here. And I'll remind you guys who played an integral part in hiring Coach L last time. Moss family. So, this is Jose Moss. You have Jose and George. George, they obviously own the Inter Miami team, but Jose Moss very involved, and he played a huge part in bringing Coach L here. Their families knew each other from Cuba, and I know he's very involved. So I think it'll be an interesting kind of decision-making process here, and we'll see, because it's always cool to hear the stories on how certain guys get brought, but I think they're gonna swing pretty big here, man. Especially with the timing of this now, it really gives you a chance to kind of look at the lay of the land across college basketball and figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, and you look at baseball. People are talking about in the comments. I'm optimistic that baseball is going to turn it around this year. I've been to a lot of the fall practices. I'm excited about what's been done in the portal, and I think that's going in the right direction. But we don't know. All we know is that it was one of the worst seasons in 50 years, if not the worst, last season. So there's a lot of frustration from a fan base perspective with that hire, which there's a lot of folks involved in these things. So would that make Dan Radakovich less likely to get a guy like Caputo? Because he says, if I do this, people are going to think, what am I doing out here getting paid all this money and hiring guys that, the assistant could, the secretary could have, the receptionist could have hired, because these are people that they already know. We'll see how that all plays out. I think he probably will be aiming to make a splash for the reasons that Rossi suggested.
I don't mean to cut you off, but like the thing about the JD hire that people need to go back and look at is, like, when Gino stepped down, it was a surprise. The team was top. We were not happy with the results at the end of the day, right? With those teams, the way those seasons ended. But D, correct me if I'm wrong, those teams were top 10 teams the last 2 years he was here, right? For a big part of the season, right? If you're Radakovich and he steps down at that time when, like, the carousel, obviously you could have gone and hired someone, but like, you just had a top 10 team in the last 2 years. Radakovich, he's looking like, man, you know what? Let me hire from within. It's a little bit easier, obviously, but like, if it doesn't work, we move on quickly. That's probably the way he was thinking about it, right? We'll see what happens this year. We're optimistic, like you said, D, but that made a little more sense because of the timing. And like, it's not like the team was a total disaster. The way the season ended, yes, but that's how I looked at that one.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And look, again, a lot riding on this season. I'm optimistic. I'm excited for Canes baseball. Not that much more to be excited about aside from Trish and women's basketball right now. And then, of course, we'll see what happens with the Canes here to finish the season and as the portal continues, which we'll probably shift gears to here in a second. But, I really am – I was not very curious to see the way the season played out, aside from watching the young players, because you kind of knew it was going to get ugly just because of playing time and things like that and guys fighting with each other. I mean, I didn't see a good result chemistry-wise for this season and vibes-wise when you had that bad start, because either the young guys are playing and veterans are upset, the veterans are playing and the young guys are upset. It's, there was just no path to a feel-good story for the season. Now I'm even more curious to see how it plays out, just because what direction are they going to go? We just don't know. With Courtney, is he going to lean on the young guys? Is he going to play with the veterans? So I'm actually more interested in this particular season, the ACC play of it, than I was 24 hours ago. And then, of course, the coaching hire, like you mentioned, you get a head start on it. There's going to be a lot of speculation. We'll be watching George Washington. We'll be watching all these other teams to see how they play.
I'll say it right now, man. If this team goes on a run and wins, like, 15 out of their next like 18 games, and they somehow make the tournament, give Coach Courtney the head coaching job.
Yeah, seriously.
if they can salvage this season and make the tournament and go on a miraculous run, just hand it to him.
He'll make he'll be a miracle worker, and he might get canonized if he pulls that one off. But we'll see. To me, the biggest concern is I'd hate to start with 0 players next year.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, look, hypothetically, you would think if they do hire a coach who's proven at another place, he would also probably bring guys with him.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing. You talked about Drake, right? That's exactly what happened at Drake. So,
and you'd think you're hiring a coach who's having success somewhere, by the way. You're not hiring someone who's not having a good season, But remember, the L hire was completely off the wall. No one expected that one. And Haith leaving was completely a surprise too. When he left to Missouri, happened in the middle of the night. Miami was struggling, so he actually kind of saved Miami there because they weren't going to fire him that year. So we'll see, man. We'll see what happens here. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. So switching gears to football, because we actually just got some news here, which is that Trey Lathan from West Virginia, Gulliver Prep, a guy we've watched for his whole career in high school, or much of his career in high school. Guy, I've known this guy's name for a while just because of mutual friends who coached him. He is going to visit Miami after this dead period. A linebacker, former safety, former wide receiver, just a total athlete at Gulliver. Goes to West Virginia, is very productive at West Virginia, 6'1", 226. He's in 2024, started all 12 games, 674 snaps, 79 tackles, 9 for loss, 2 tackles, and a forced fumble. So that's an interesting one to me. When he jumped in the portal, I was curious as to how that might play out. I will find out more about what the interest level is from Miami. Obviously, they're taking him for a visit, so there's some curiosity there. We're looking for an athletic Will. He can play both positions, but probably fits best in a more run and hit role, athletic guy. He does have the size to play in the middle if necessary. So that's a news. Gabby with 247 had that scoop just 2 minutes ago. So that's a name that to me makes sense when he jumped in the portal. I tweeted about him because it does make sense. B, were you around when Lathan was getting recruited, or was that after you kind of moved on from?
I think that was after me, man. I was full-time agent for 5 years, man. This is I think it's about past that time where I was interviewing these guys.
Yeah. So like again, the thing with Lathan was always, is he going to be physical enough to be an every down linebacker? And obviously he started every game for West Virginia and played a ton of snaps. So he's gotten to that point at least, but physical wise, size, athleticism, 225, runs like a deer, very good in pass coverage, at least in high school. I got to study his West Virginia tape. That's an interesting name to keep an eye on. Everybody's asking about Xavier Lucas. I'm hearing the same as everybody else. Complicated situation. Wisconsin's trying to kick up dust. He wants to leave. We'll see how it works out. I think the next step might be just public humiliation for Wisconsin. That's hopefully in the cards. We'll see what happens. As long as he wants to leave, I think that's going to be a live deal. Of course, the portal closes in a couple days for Wisconsin, so we'll see where that situation goes. But the focus from the Canes football standpoint is going to be getting ready to win this bowl game here on Saturday. I think the name you guys want to keep an eye on is going to be JoJo Trader as the receiver. It's going to have a lot of responsibility. Looks like there's been no Restrepo. Sam Brown will be out. Isaiah Horton, of course, is out. So you're losing 3 of your top 4 receivers. Jacoby George in line for maybe a redemption game. He'd been playing so well before his terrible penalty. But chance to redeem himself a little bit in the eyes of Canes fans with a big game here in the Pop-Tart Bowl. JoJo Trader, healthy, playing really, really well in practice. You saw Dennis Smith, Miami's head of recruiting, retweeting post about Trader being ready to break out. I don't think that's a coincidence or something random. A lot of people expect Trader to have a big bowl game for Miami against Iowa State. Of course, you still have Carr, another young player to watch. The name I'd be keeping a close eye on, along with trader Elijah Lofton. Not a receiver, but somebody who's going to get a lot of targets, and I think is going to be a key part of this offense going forward.
Looking at some of these questions here, of course, the quarterback question, D.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think is Quinn Ewers or Carson Beck an option? I mean, are they an option right now? They're not in the portal. If they jumped in the portal, I think they'd be major options. I think people have kind of I made a tweet about it the other day. I think Cam Ward's distorted people's perception of what a good college quarterback looks like when guys that are NFL prospects and, top 10 nationally in passing categories are saying, oh, yeah, he's no good. I mean, I advise those people to watch college football and look at other quarterbacks, what they look like, especially other quarterbacks in the country next year, and compare, because I do think people's perceptions of quarterbacks have gone completely out of whack under Cam Ward, and they're just not seeing things clear with respect to what a good quarterback at college looks like. And when I say not looking clear, it's not like I'm the arbiter of what's good and bad. I'm just saying if they looked at it like the rest of the country looks at these players, it would be a lot different. Forget my opinion. I'm talking about if Ewers or Beck jumps in the portal, they're going to immediately jump to the top of all these portal lists. They're going to immediately jump to the top of the NIL valuations from other schools. And they're going to immediately jump to the top of other schools' personnel departments' quarterback pref list. So do I think they're options? They're not in the portal. If they jump in the portal, absolutely options. And I think when you have Miami's offensive line, and Miami's running game, which elevated Cam Ward from a player who was a day 3 pick to a day 1 pick, potentially the first overall pick. His offenses at Washington State, 53rd and 71st, respectively. Of course, number 1 by far here at Miami. So the sell is obvious for those players if they want to rehabilitate their stock to the point where they're going. These guys view themselves as number 1 overall top 5 picks like Cam Ward is going to be. So seeing his progression, they're probably saying, I want the same thing for myself. If they do enter the portal, of course, Quinn Ewers could win the championship and go pro, or have a great playoff run and go pro. Carson Beck could return to Georgia. Who knows what's going to happen? It sounds like he'll be ready and throwing in spring. So we'll monitor those situations. I'm sure the comments are going crazy, Pete, so you can go ahead and find something there. They're always talking about quarterback.
The first thing I was going to get to is the Canes Cats Heat 305 was asking about portal tight end. Are we going after one? And if not, do we expect Brock Schott to make a big impact? I thought they should have gone after a tight end, even if Riley Williams is coming back. So yeah, I would say 100%. I don't know who the name is. I don't know if they're on any right now, but D.
Yeah, they're going to go after a tight end. Bowman just entered the portal from Tulane. Big red zone threat tight end for Tulane. He's going to get a lot of interest. I expect Miami to be interested there. Miami is definitely interested in adding a tight end, although I think Lofton is going to be one of the best players on the team next year as far as targets, as far as production, as far as just being the best player. He's going to be a top 5 player on the team next year, probably starting as soon as this bowl game. Arroyo's going to play also in the bowl game and be a big factor. But I do think they want to add another true tight end with size that can block, that can catch. And then Schott's going to be more of your specialty player. Schott's not, he's only 220 probably coming in. So I don't think he's going to come in and just be the starter or anything like that.
Williams Bacon asking what's your order for Beck, Ewers, and Mendoza. Of course, Mendoza's off the board now. He's headed to Indiana. My order, if I could have chosen one of them to be Miami's quarterback next year, would probably have been Ewers, Mendoza, Beck.
Yeah, there's a lot of variability here.
Yeah, a lot goes into it. The injury with Beck, I understand he's going to be throwing now, but you just never know how a guy's going to come back.
Yeah, I think the injury with Beck, although, it's the same surgery Brock Purdy had, and Brock Purdy was an MVP candidate the next year, never better than he was following that surgery. It's the same surgery. It's not a Tommy John. People saying it's Tommy John surgery. At least what's been reported is not Tommy John. It's something different. It's a brace. So he's projected to be back here in spring throwing, and if he's again has the same recovery as Purdy, he'll be fine. Pete's asking where do you see Beck or Gio's asking Pete where you see Beck and Ewers drafted if they declare this year.
The Beck thing's tough with the injury. It's very tough to predict where he would end up. If he can't throw for teams, I don't see him going in the first 3 rounds. If he can't throw for teams before, which if that's the case, he would be coming back 100%. If he can't throw for teams, he would not be making a smart decision to leave this year.
Yeah, and Yours has injury questions too, right? He's playing, but he's been banged up. His arm hasn't been quite the same. So
I think he's hurt himself this year. I think that's probably a third, fourth round look for Ewers.
I know Rick Spielman, it's hard to know where GMs have everybody, but Rick Spielman is a very recent executive who has a podcast, just retired. And he had Beck number 1 all year as his top quarterback. And then he recently moved Cam Ward to number 1, Shador number 2, Beck down to number 3. This pre-injury. And he was, Ewers was dropping quite a bit on his board based on his play. So I think Beck would get drafted probably still pretty high if he came back strong with that from that elbow. But the fact that he can't throw to me means he'd probably be selling himself short by coming back or by going pro instead of coming back. To the earlier question about Mendoza, Beck, and Ewers, Mendoza's the surest bet because he's healthy, he's young, he's on the up. You know what you're going to get with him. And I think we would have had him pretty easily if we tried harder to get him. I think he still has upside as well. If I'm just basing them on what I've seen the last 2 years, I think Beck's the best talent of all 3 of those guys. Yours has been just so up and down with the injuries. Beck, there was a reason why he was projected by guys like Spielman as the number 1 quarterback because of the size, the arm strength. He's been extremely productive. He can run as well for first downs. And he's experienced, which to me, experience is a huge thing. All 3 of these guys have pretty good experience, but experience is becoming the most important thing at quarterback. You look at the NFL with Nix and Daniels and guys like that. You look at college, Cam Ward, Shador Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, all huge experience as starting quarterbacks. I think these 3 all have a good experience. Beck, been in the SEC, competing there. So he certainly has that to him. But I do think Beck of those 3 is probably the best player just in terms of right now football. The intangibles, I don't know Beck's, he was starting quarterback for Georgia. So obviously he's working hard enough to have their respect and he's competing in big games. I haven't dug into him as much on that. I just don't know. Mendoza, I know a little more because I followed his career coming from down here. So that's something that needs to be explored with all these guys. But if you're talking about just players, I mean, Beck is the best player, I think. And he was the highest rated from an NFL standpoint.
Yeah, he was going to go top 10 most likely, whether people agree with that or not. I mean, he was on that trajectory.
Right. So, I think with all 3 of these, let me answer the question another way. I would take all 3 of these guys, not at the same time. I would take each one of these guys into our current room. I think they'd represent massive improvements, and I'm not that worried about developing our own guys personally. That's always a fight in the comments. What do you about developing our own guys? I don't think Oregon cares that much about developing guys when they bring in Dylan Gabriel, and then his backup is also a portal guy. I don't think Ohio State's that concerned when they bring in Will Howard. His backup is also a portal guy, albeit, a first-year portal guy in Insane. Texas, they have a portal guy at the top. Obviously, they spent a lot of money for Arch Manning. That's a kind of unique situation. The best teams are getting portal quarterbacks. It really doesn't matter. The Heisman was a portal guy. The Heisman's been portal guys. Talking about the draft, the guys, Bo Nix, Daniels, those guys are all balling portal guys. Michael Penix just got the start. He's a portal guy. Developing your own quarterback to me is last on the list of things I'm worried about at the University of Miami. I'm worried about having a good quarterback to play Notre Dame and then developing players around him and bringing in players around him so he can be successful. That's my concern. I don't feel, they're like the downside. Oh, you get a portal guy every year. You're never going to develop your own.
I mean, look,
I'm not
like
that worried
Kyle
about it.
says at some point, no high school QB will commit to us then. But I mean, again, like what D's point is, look at the top teams in the country. Their quarterbacks weren't high school signees with them either.
And we got Luke Nickel, right?
Yeah.
So, and Luke Nickel, if you ask me of all the guys we brought in who I'm most excited about, I'm by far of those 3 most excited about Luke Nickel. I think he's physically better than Emery. I think he has more experience being a decision maker and playmaker than Judd, who was a big man finisher. He wasn't a guard when he played basketball, when he was more of a basketball player. As he became more of a quarterback prospect, started in the wing tee, has only recently been that drop back passer. So tools wise, I like Nickel over Emery, and then just experience as that playmaker, I like him over Judd. We'll see on Green Tree. That's why they have quarterback competitions. But you have Luke Nickel, and let's say you get a guy like a Beck or Ewers, they're going to be here for a year tops. So then Luke Nickel, if he's your guy and he's in practice and you're saying this guy is our future, he sits a year and then he starts. That's really the best progression anyways for quarterbacks. You sit a year and then you start. So I don't think that taking a 1-year portal guy interferes with a Luke Nickel. That is your guy. He might not be your guy. Or if it's Judd. Judd still needs a year too. So it worked that way. So that's kind of where I'm at. So, and then, we'll see. Crowder, my guy's asking, how do you feel about Emory? Can he take us to the ACC championship game? It's hard for me to say. I haven't seen enough. Here's what I'll say about Emory. Intangible wise, forget about any questions. The guy's got it mentally. You saw how tough he was running people over that FSU game, ultimately breaking his arm. The guy's got all the mental stuff you want and intangible stuff. Very well liked by the team. Team has a lot of faith in Emory because he does very well in practice. The coaches like him too because he's very productive in practice. I've seen him slinging it in practice. Great size, great accuracy, very good in the red zone, very good decision maker, very polished mechanically. The concern I have with Emory, and we're not going to know this until he started games, but he started 2 games where they were really protecting him. He wasn't asked to throw a lot against Clemson and Florida State, at least not down the field. So those were game plans that were meant to protect him. What I want to know with Emory, and it's hard to know until you see live bullets consistently, is he going to be able to adjust his platform and not be a running quarterback, but be a fluid and athletic quarterback when things aren't perfect? Because in practice, they can't hit you. So you don't see that. That environment suits a quarterback like Emory. Kaya was the best practice quarterback ever. Was a great on-the-field quarterback too, but did have his troubles when he had to kind of move around a little bit. With Emory, is he going to be fluid and athletic enough to change his platform and deliver the ball? Or if he has the opportunity to run, to at least give you something you have to respect in the running game? Judd is an incredible athlete. I mean, Judd's going to shock people when they see how fast he runs when he's in the open field. Luke Nickel, I see a lot of functional athleticism with him watching him in high school. Guy like a Carson Beck, very good athlete, underrated. Ewers can run as well. Mendoza, a pretty good athlete, underrated. So can Emory give you that level of athleticism? I don't know. I've heard he's made a lot of progress, making his motion smoother and more fluid, and then, just working on his athletic ability. He's a big kid. That's what you have to see. And I'm not going to say you can't do it because you just don't know until they're starting games, throwing the ball a lot and getting pressured. But that is my concern just based on some of his movement patterns when I have seen him.
Josh Sarnoff says it's the contrary. Ward's the reason we got commitments from Coleman and Luke. He elevated the position for recruiting. I think Luke has been committed since August of 23. So that would have been like 6 months before, 5-6 months before Ward even was here, right?
Yeah, but look, I think he
definitely did elevate it, though.
I think Nickel got a lot of people recruiting him down the stretch. I'm sure the fact that Miami was playing so well on offense helped secure his commitment. If we were fumbling on offense, I'm sure a school could have come in there like an Auburn or whoever and slid in and got him right down the road. So I think that's a fair point. I think the other thing about having a big name quarterback is it makes it easier to recruit that receiving piece you need. Let's say JoJo Trader and Night Card do work in the bowl game, which we are all hoping is the case. You have CJ Daniels to replace Horton. I think the guy you're missing is your first team All-American and Restrepo. You're just your go-to guy. Doesn't have to be a slot, but your go-to receiver. If you're going to recruit a guy like that and you still have time with this window and then potentially the second portal window, you need a quarterback with a brand name. And I think a Becker or Ewers, they do have that name if you want to recruit a receiver.
Canes Cats 305 asking, which player does this team need to take that next step for this team to continue to improve? I'm going Ahmad Moten. I think if you get a consistent performance out of him next season, he helps a lot of things. A lot of people would go straight to the secondary, but I think Ahmad Moten, to me, because he has a body type that you've been needing, and you're not really going to find those guys in the portal.
Yeah, I think it's a good choice. I'm going to go with JoJo Trader. I just mentioned him. Jacoby George gone. Sam Brown gone. Restrepo gone. Horton gone. That's everybody. I mean, bowl game, George will be here, but he'll be gone next year. JoJo Trader needs to step up. You can bring in portal receivers, and we have, but at some point, you're young, expensive, highly acclaimed players need to produce. I've seen him in practice. I love what I've seen from him in practice. He's been nicked up, plus playing behind these veteran players. He's someone I think everybody expects to make the step up, both in the bowl game and then with a full offseason to get his body right and to continue to get stronger. That's the biggest. Jeremiah Smith is the best. There's no other Jeremiah Smiths. But the biggest difference between Jeremiah Smith and JoJo, and again, I don't think JoJo will ever get to that level just because Jeremiah Smith he's on that Hall of Fame level. But the biggest difference between them playing early is both the guys in front of him, and then also Jeremiah Smith is is stronger physically. So I think JoJo, as his body continues to improve, you'll see his game elevate. And hopefully it starts here in this Pop-Tarts Bowl, because we really need a premier receiver, homegrown, that we recruited and spent a lot of money on, because that's a position where you can get good guys in the portal. You can get really good guys in the portal. Some of these elite athlete kind of receivers are already making plays for their teams, whether it's Jeremiah Smith, Cam Coleman, Ryan Williams, Wingo for Texas, Wesco and more for Clemson. These are guys all making plays for their teams right now as true freshmen. Trader wants to put his name in that ring. He was rated with those guys coming out of high school. Let's see how it looks in the bowl. So Pete, real quick, want to shout out, someone doesn't need a breakout. They've been consistent every single step of the way. And that is Islas Canarias. Had some of those croquetas for the Christmas meal. They're a huge hit. Hope some of you guys did that as well. If not, doesn't have to be just for Christmas. I'm sure there's going to be New Year's parties, playoff game watches, or just getting around the house. You want the authentic Cuban cuisine. Islas Canarias, located out west, but also at the Dayland Mall Dining Pavilion. I went there for lunch this week with Mike Ryan. It was a great time. Just unbelievable. It was packed, but the line went fast because they got a lot of people working there. But it is by far the most popular place in Dayland. So listen, you want to get some deals here after Christmas, go shop and then go to the dining pavilion at Islas Canarias, the best Cuban food on the planet. If you want those those Croqueta County shirts I wear, you can just go to croquetacounty.com and get some of the official gear, Islas Canarias.
Yeah, and I'm going to shout out Aries Law, PA, AriesLaw.com, AriesLawPA.com, as you see here. The sponsor for all of our basketball content here on Canes Insight. This is my dad, guys. Specializes in wills, trusts, probate, so estate planning, really important. And look, it's not stuff that we like to talk about very much, but you got to plan your future. If you're a parent, grandparent, protect your future so others don't. And again, AriesLawPA.com. His office is in the Gables, headed towards that Brickell area. So go check him out. Get a free consultation. You will not be disappointed.
There you go. The man. I know he's eagerly watching to see who Miami hires here for the basketball coach. Coming from Cat 5, I want to get to this. This was going around my group chats. We need to keep the top 10 talent in Florida. We aren't doing that right now. Pickett, Brown, the third, French, Thomas, Wilson, Stubbs, Taylor, etc. aren't coming to the U. Got to start doing this. Yeah, On3 posted the top 10 recruits in Florida. So you can find that, Pete. It's just looking On3. And Miami didn't have any of those commits or signings for this last class. Now, look, do I think Malachi Toney or someone like that, Josh Moore, could have been in that mix? Certainly. But look, the rankings are on the whole pretty accurate. So yeah, that's something that needs to improve. I think what you will see in this spring, summer is a concerted effort to get a Calvin Russell in the boat. Syracuse is recruiting hard football, basketball. You got to get Calvin Russell, top 10 or top 20 player, 5-star player out of Northwestern. You got to get him to Miami. Miami legacy, his mom's in the Hall of Fame. Derek Cooper, a staple at Miami Hurricanes games. Chaminade, running back / linebacker, another 5-star player. It was a much, much better year for South Florida. South Florida just has not been, there you go, the top 10 players in Florida. Look at all those other logos. The top players in South Florida have not been up to par lately. South Florida's declined a bit outside of like a Jeremiah Smith the last few years. It's starting to come back. You could get as many as 5 to 6 top 100 players nationally from South Florida. I mentioned Russell. I mentioned Cooper, two guys Miami has a very good shot with. The two highest rated players down here, also Diabell, the quarterback for American Heritage, Rajah Bell's son. He's headed to Texas, so you're not going to get him most likely. But the other two you certainly can get. Bennett, the wide receiver from American Heritage, potential top 100 guy, elite speedster. J-Rock Flowers, another elite speedster, returner, corner from Northwestern, must-get player, really tied with Calvin Russell. He's been visiting Syracuse as well, but you can't let those guys go to Syracuse. Come on. Elite physical talents. We have also Jordan Campbell, linebacker from Carroll City, super athletic, big linebacker, committed to Miami right now. Got to keep that commit. But a lot of really good players here locally, and Miami's just gotta keep him in town, and that'll be a big difference to changing that stat.
My boy Rocco, man, he says just got back from vacation. I see D Money still running state media spin. Thankfully, Aries hasn't been compromised. I will never be compromised. They can never buy my soul.
The Rocco saying, still smash that like button. Love the show. Appreciate that. That's what I don't understand is when I talk about quarterbacks on other teams, they're saying I'm running state media for this team. If I was running state media for the Miami Hurricanes on this quarterback portal, here's what I would be saying. I believe Emory Williams is the quarterback. Just got to give him a shot. He's going to lead us to the national championship. We got Judd Anderson right behind him. He's ready to step in. Luke Nickel, he can start as a true freshman. If I was running state media and doing propaganda and spinning, that's what I'd be talking about because they're already on our team. Why would I be talking about other players instead of the guys already on our team if I was trying to spin and pump orange and green? If I'm pumping orange and green, I don't talk about people wearing red and black or burnt orange, right? Or blue and gold. I'm talking about guys wearing orange and green now. That's what I'd be spinning, but I'm not spinning because I'm realist and I'm saying, look, the one thing that we cannot have at the University of Miami is a step back. We just had a season that was disappointing at the end, incredibly so because of how good Cam Ward is, but clearly was a step up in the last 20 years. We're on TV every day. People are doing the Cam Ward dance all over the country. There you go. Kids are joining the cause. You know, my kids, so many other people's kids are now huge Hurricane fans because of how fun this season's been, cheering for first team All-Americas like Cam Ward or Restrepo. We cannot take a step back to 8-5, 7-5, getting blown out every other loss. That cannot happen. And the best way to ensure that doesn't happen, the safest way to ensure that doesn't happen, you're going to have a good offensive line, is to get a veteran quarterback that has produced at the Power 4 level. So that's the team that I'm on as far as what I want to happen here for the Miami Hurricanes. And if that's state propaganda, I mean, that's common sense. That should be common sense to everybody. If I was trying to spin people, I'd say Emory Williams will step in and get 12 wins. He's already on our team. So I never understood that whole state propaganda lie when it comes to players on other teams.
Anthony Manzano has been asking this question, so I want to get to it, and then we'll wrap things up in a few here. But he's been asking about Dawson and his scheme, how, Cam Ward had some mobility. If Emory does end up being the guy, will that kind of affect the way that the offense is run?
I don't think so. I mean, this air raid, the air raid, you can just be a pocket passer and get rid of the ball quick. I think he fits the system fine from that standpoint. My concern is more when the design play breaks down because, there's a blitz you don't expect, or someone gets knocked back just a little bit and you have to move, just the kind of in-between stuff, the creative stuff, not even running around for 4 hours like Cam Ward does sometimes, but just the slight modifications. Can whoever the quarterback is, Emory or whoever, be able to still be athletic enough to make a play when it's not exactly perfect? That'd be more my concern than fitting the scheme. I think he fits the scheme perfectly. In fact, probably better than others because he's been in it his whole career and really learned under Dawson.
A lot of questions about what Cam Ward's plans are this weekend. Obviously, it's been reported, and he's talked about how he's going to play. People are asking if he's playing the whole game. Is Emory going to get a series here or there? I don't know what the full plans are. I would say Cam Ward probably will play as long as he wants to play. And if Cam Ward wants, how do you pull him, D, if he wants to play? Now, if they go up a few scores or if they go down, unfortunately, in a situation like that, is there kind of like a mutual agreement to get Emory out there? Maybe there is a plan for him to get a certain series or rotate in. I don't know what the coaching plans are, but I would think if Cam Ward wants to play, as long as he wants to play, he will be out there. I don't know if you agree or not.
Yeah, and look, I don't talk about those kind of things, on the show for obvious reasons, just because there's strategy involved and all those sort of things. So, Cam Ward is our quarterback. Cam Ward is going to be our quarterback, and I expect Cam Ward to put on a show. And if Emory gets in, great. I hope he kills it. But Cam Ward's the quarterback. He's there. He's ready to play, and I look forward to watching him play. And we got to win, man. Like, people were dismissing this game, and if we lose, it'll be the end of the world. So we got to win this game. I'm tired of losing bowl games at Miami. It has been a consistent theme of the past 2 decades. You lose bowls. You had one bowl win with Chevis Grant getting an interception against Nevada, and you had one bowl win where Amon Richards went crazy and Nikaya just threw the ball beautifully, and we were able to blow out West Virginia. We need bowl success. We need to carry that bowl success into the next season and really get it rolling. In 2017, when we had that huge run, That was, I think, spurred in many respects by that great bowl win the year before and the momentum finishing the year, which carried over into 2017. If you go back to 2000, the year that Miami really turned it around from the probation era to become a powerhouse in the early 2000s, the Gator Bowl win with Ken Dorsey in 1999 really kind of spearheaded or triggered that run for those of you who remember that game. So I'm a big believer bowl wins can carry momentum to the next year. We got to win this thing. Iowa State's a very good team. They're first 10-win team in the history of Iowa State, or at least in the history of the Matt Campbell era of Iowa State. They're a good ball club. You got to win this game.
We're going to have a conversation with an Iowa State reporter from the 247 site tonight. So that'll be coming out tomorrow morning. So stay tuned for that. We'll actually get into the X's and O's and the breakdown of the game, because a lot of the last couple of weeks has been portal speculation and stuff like that, which it's been very fun. We appreciate everyone who's followed along with us and gone through everything. So, it'll keep going though. I mean, there's still some moves to be made, it looks like, here over the next few weeks. And then obviously there's going to be a spring portal too, but that'll be a few months away here.
Yep. And someone's asking where we're sitting. I'm not sure where I should know. I'll be out there. Pre-game festivities. We'll let you know. We'll be recording there. So I'll let you guys know, because I want to meet you guys. If you see me, say what's up. I'll be out there with the fam. So always fun to meet you guys and celebrate the Canes. And look, I will be wearing apparel from the Miami Hurricane team store, as well my family. That's Miami Hurricane team store, MiamiHTS.com. You can go there in person right across the street from the University of Miami, or you can go to MiamiHTS.com if you are not local. Use promo code INSIGHT20 and you get 20% off. My brother-in-law went there yesterday to buy some stuff for his kids. He said INSIGHT20. They were at the register, and the woman at the register said, look, we got a button right here for Canes Insight. Boom. Hit the button, 20% off the first item, just to let them know Canes Insight, INSIGHT20. They'll take care of you. And, of course, you could also do that online with promo code INSIGHT20. 20% off Miami's official retail provider. They got everything, and all the proceeds go to the school, which is paying players now. So this is hand in hand, guys. Let's be part of the cause.
D, I wanted to remind people as well to go check out our other page here, Group Chat Sports. We have a show that we do every day as well, Group Chat Football Live. We actually did it this morning, talking about transfer moves across the country. So go give it a follow on YouTube. Just search Group Chat Sports. Again, we talk stuff across the country, not just Canes. A lot of player movement, portal stuff. And if you're a Canes fan, you want to keep an eye on what's happening at Florida State, at North Carolina, some of these ACC schools, Notre Dame with a pickup early game next year against Miami. So go check it out, Group Chat Sports. We appreciate everyone's support that we've had there.
Yep. No, it's a lot of fun just to keep track. That should be a general recruiting channel too, as recruiting heats up. So if you want to keep track of who's going where, that's a daily show. They'll give you everything you need, live form, long show, and then also little clips depending on what you're interested in. So a lot of fun. I've becoming much more educated as a college football fan, really diving into all these moves and understanding how these teams are being built.
Looks like we're going to be heading to Lubbock this year.
Yeah. Talk about a team that's improving. So a lot of new players in college football. Teams are changing overnight. So keep track of everything. Group Chat Sports, Group Chat Football Live. And if you even don't care, show us a like and subscribe anyway, just to support. We appreciate you guys.
Yeah, man. We appreciate the over 1,000 that have been on here with us. Again, if you're just joining us, Jim Larranaga stepping down at Miami, and we broke that down for the first part of the show. It's a sad day, not the way you want to see a legend go out, but it was his decision. It's been, that's what we speculated and kind of understood was the case. And now Jeff Goodman's also reporting that it was a Larranaga decision. And look, we appreciate everything he's done for the program. Obviously, greatest basketball coach in program history, but again, giving the admin a chance now to run a real search here. You're getting a head start on things. So we'll be tracking it all, man. I have a feeling we'll be hearing some interesting names pop up out of the radar.
Yeah, can't wait. All right, fellas, stay tuned. Go Canes.
Go Canes.